You've got a lot to communicate, and if you can just get people to pay attention, you'll delight your customers and sell more wine. But people ignore emails and screen calls. Everyone does read their text messages, but alcohol regulations make compliance a bear. Use RedChirp to cut through the noise. Convert website traffic into reservations and sales with web-to-text chat. Reliably reach members about customizing club orders, declined cards, and delinquent pickups. Exceed your sales goals with customized promotions that make everyone feel like a VIP. Securely collect credit card info 6 times faster. Reduce returns and no-shows with completely automated shipment notifications and reservation reminders, while order attribution automatically connects text to sales so you know what's working. RedChirp is trusted by wineries of all sizes and integrates with your other tools. Get more leads, make more sales, and build stronger relationships with RedChirp.
Good. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, I wanted to thank you for coming to the session today. Hope you all had a good lunch. Yes? I think they do a good job here at the hotel. At any rate, this is all about packaging, and I hope you're all here because you believe in the power of packaging. Packaging is one of those things that is like an extension of a handshake. And when you do that, you look at the hand, you feel the hand, but you look at the person that you're about to engage with. That's what packaging does for us in the wine business. Since the advent of social media, that greeting doesn't just happen on a retail shelf or in a restaurant bar. It's all about pictures and images that create a sense of identity and therefore a connection with our customers, all right? So today, we've got 2 very interesting case studies, and I think you're gonna find that the information that they're gonna give you is based on very good market intentions on how to improve a brand that may have been out there for a long time, but there is a common theme between both of these case studies, which is how do we attract a new, younger consumer into our franchise, all right? So let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna ask each of you to introduce yourself when your presentation comes up. And so we're going to kick it off with Boda Breeze as our case study. And Kathy and Ed, do you want to introduce yourselves? And then we'll get into the presentation.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Happy afternoon. I'm Kathy Pierce. I'm Vice President of Brand Marketing at Delicato Family Wines, which is the proud owner of Boda Box. I'm with Delicato for about 12 years, and I've been in various marketing positions throughout.
Great. Thanks, Kathy. And I am Ed Rice. I'm with Affinity Creative Group, and Kathy is one of our very fine clients. I've been with Affinity for about 10 years, hard to believe, but true. I'm the managing director there, and before that worked at several other agencies, including Landor Associates, a large branding and design firm, kind of where I cut my teeth and learned about the profession. So thanks for joining us, and look forward to sharing some interesting insights today with you. So, Tim, are we doing?
No, we're going to go right into the Boda
All right, we'll just
case
go
study
right in.
first.
All right, great. So there we go. Hello, everybody. So just a little bit more about Affinity. So we are a brand specialist, branding, design, experience, and activation firm. We've recently have joined forces with another agency, actually in Miami, called Kaboo Kaboo. And we wanted to amplify our digital marketing prowess. So we now offer a full continuum of not only brand identity services, but also the full array of digital marketing services. And we're very complementary. We've got everything from branding, creativity, very focused on the client experience, very collaborative, and we combine that with the digital first agency based out of Miami, actually. So we have a full coast-to-coast offering. For the affinity side, a lot of focus on brand strategy, brand identity development, naming, copywriting, and packaging, as well as the print production aspect. And then Kaboo Kaboo follows that up with digital strategy, a lot of social media, SEO, SEM, email marketing, etc. And then we also offer activation services. We're very fortunate that we work across the full continuum of producers. So we're very honored to work with large producers like Delicado, and then niche producers as well, and also out of category. So whether it's Miyoko's organic food, plant-based foods, Crystal Geyser, Cordo olive oil, we were able to work across a wide range of categories, which brings that insight and perspective to each project, which enables us to bring a little bit of a different point of view. And about Delicado.
Hi. So Delicado, it is a family-owned company. The Indelicados have had 4 generations of either growing or making wine here in California. We're about to celebrate a big milestone with our company. Next year is our 100th anniversary of when our founder, Gaspar Indelicado, planted his first vineyard out in Manteca in 1924, which a lot of us at the company think it was a pretty gutsy thing to do right in the middle of Prohibition, plant a vineyard. But since then, the family has continued to grow and really build the winery out. We are now the number 5 wine supplier here in the United States, and we produce about 17 million cases annually. Our portfolio spans from the luxury side, import brands like Torbreck, the Black Stallion Winery over there on the Silverado Trail, to more wholesale, large commercially available brands, the Francis Ford Coppola Diamond brand, Sophia Coppola wine, Gnarly Head, and of course, Boda Box that we'll be talking about today. All right, so a little bit about Boda Box. It is wine in a box. We are really the pioneers of bringing premium, high-quality wine and putting it into an environmentally alternative format package. Since then, it delivers quality and value to consumers, but also has that eco-friendly packaging that a lot of younger consumers really gravitate towards. So as a whole, the Boda Box premise already appealed to younger consumers, and often younger consumers came into wine through an alternative packaging format such as Boda Box. It has grown since 2003. We are now the number 1 3-liter premium box in the category and across all wine brands. All wine brands that consumers drink here in the United States, we are the number 5 wine brand, and produce about 12 million cases every year that our consumers are enjoying. So we're growing, but we always want to grow more. We want to bring new consumers in, not only to our business, but we see the critical need out there. The dynamics are changing. We've got to get younger consumers not only into our personal brands and the brands that we own, but into wine as a whole. So we're always monitoring opportunities. And so we tend to look at macro trends, those values, attitudes, and beliefs that are influencing consumer behavior. Ultimately, we want to influence purchase behavior. And one of those trends, these macro large trends that we saw, was conscientious consumption. Consumers are much more aware of what they are putting into their bodies, the foods that they're eating, the wines that they're drinking, any kind of beverages that they're drinking. And we saw this food trend, this wellness factor, migrating from food over into beverages. And consumers really wanted to find healthier options that worked in their lifestyles to be able to enjoy alcohol beverages the way they wanted to enjoy them in a healthier way. So we saw this opportunity, this macro trend, and then from our perspective, we had to find a way in. What can our brand do to take this opportunistic approach with this trend? So we at Delicado are very consumer-focused in terms of our innovation. Everything from the initial product idea all the way to launch. We use data, consumer insights, we validate it with research to make sure what we're bringing to market is really going to be successful. So starting with that core initial trend that we were seeing, that macro trend of, better for you products, we wanted to find a way in for BodaBox, and we came up with lots of different ideas, just general statements, just high-level ideas, and we put those in front of consumers to see, did it even make sense? Do we have a reason to go into this idea, and would consumers believe it? And so we had an idea, and it was BodaBox Breeze light wines, and consumers were head nodding to that in terms of our research. So we really wanted to blow it out and make sure this is a really valid idea, that there's going to be success in the marketplace. So we wanted to push it out and see who would be interested in buying this kind of a product and what benefits did they want out of it. So we did a really deep dive in terms of a concept test and validating it. And we found that it was very appealing to consumers. They wanted a light, healthier alternative option. And what we also found that who was very interested in this was, yet again, those younger consumers. So younger consumers that find a way to enjoy wine on their own terms. They also told us, these are the most important benefits that we want this kind of a product to deliver. Better for you, healthier alternatives. There's a lot of things that you can claim, a lot of things that you can say. But from the research that we had, they wanted to know about lower carbs, lower calories, lower sugar, but they don't want to give up anything. They still want it to be light, refreshing, delicious wine. So that's what we knew we wanted to deliver. And that was the challenge then we put over to Affinity. Bring that concept to life in a package. Make sure it fits within the BodaBox family, but it speaks to this better for you consumer mindset and delivers the key benefits that we need to communicate. Low cal, low calories, light and refreshing. And that's the challenge to Affinity.
Nothing to it, folks. So when you think about what's at stake, right? 12 million case franchise, and we were honored to be selected to bring this concept to life within the context of the franchise. And often that is even a greater challenge than starting from scratch, because you have these equities, right? In fact, let me just go back for a second. So, this is a well-known brand. It's ubiquitous, and there are equities. In fact, when you go back to the original concept, the fact that it's in a recyclable box with a recyclable symbol front and center, that is something to recognize and realize that that is a carryover. So whatever new product may be introduced under the franchise, we need to recognize that this craft canvas that instantly signals, hey, you can put this in the recycling bin, right, the box. That needs to be taken into consideration. The strong graphics on the front, I think we call it the river, right, Kathy? That nice swoosh that brings the eye into the center of the package, and then the eye reads the brand. It all just works really nicely. So let's recognize that, but at the same time recognize we have a new concept, a new product concept. It's lighter, it's more refreshing, it has specific product attributes and benefits, and we're trying to appeal to a slightly different consumer, a consumer that still appreciates BodaBox values, but also recognizes, hey, this is for me. This is a product that fits with my values and my interests. So, how did we get there? That's why we're here. So, everything starts with the brief, right? Even if small producer, it's a conversation with a designer or with your agency or with your design firm, and we were very fortunate to have a great and very detailed brief. It was just fantastic. And even within the context of the brief, Kathy and her team collaborated with us on where could the designers become inspired? How do we connect with this younger, healthier, more aware, just conscious consumer? And we started looking at the color palette of today. What are the fashion trends? What are the home trends? What sort of patterns are being used in the home, in fashion, whether it's curtains or whether it's a backsplash, or where can we get inspired to communicate, convey the idea of it's lighter, it's more refreshing. What sort of elements should we look at? Should we look to nature? Butterflies, perhaps, dandelions even, right? Where can we get inspired? So we collect just a range of inspirational swatches and just images and even color swatches from your local Home Depot to see what's current and what's trendy. Also, we talked a lot about the importance of a sub-brand. Often a sub-brand, whether it's a coined word or it may be just a fanciful name that goes in concert with your brand, will really help convey the proposition. And at the time, Kathy and her team, they were considering the obvious, right? Is this BodaBox Light? You know, I mean, gets the idea across. Or do we use something a little bit more, again, expressive and fanciful? And they had this one candidate, BodaBox Breeze, which you'll see is ultimately where we landed. But I think it's worth noting that sometimes the verbal communication could be as inspiring as some of the visual as well. So let's take a look at the work. So I'm going to just kind of pause and let you absorb what's on the screen right now. And this is a partial exploration. And often when there's a lot at risk, big franchise, very large brand, we will do a lot of work, and it'll be very iterative, because sometimes it's like, how far is too far? And if you're not doing the exploration or the work, it's really hard to tell. And it's really important to start close in, and you can see the existing BodaBox Pinot Grigio on the upper left side. And that's there as a frame of reference, right? That's what we're extending from. That's kind of like the anchor point. And then the question is, how many of those equities move over to the new offering? And you can see that we have taken a lot of liberties, some not so much, others pretty extensive. And you can see just a variety of different design techniques, different elements. One big question was how much of that brown craft equity gets carried over. And it was really a push me, pull you situation, because the brown equity and the craft feel is BodaBox, but yet it's not necessarily lighter and more refreshing. So it was really quite a balancing act to get that right degree of transference over to the offering. And you can also see how the word light was used on some of the exhibits, as well as the breeze expression, and different relationships with breeze and BodaBox. And you can start to see that on some of these directions, you kind of feel it. You know, you kind of feel what the proposition's all about. You don't even necessarily need to read it, although there's a lot of supporting copy there that's placed in different locations and in different ways, because you really wanted to make sure those core attributes, low cal, low carbs, and low alcohol, was really available to the consumer right on the face panel. Another benefit of the BodaBox structure is that we have more areas for communication. So we recognized that the front panel was really the grabbing element, right? The engagement element, pull the consumer in, and then we utilize the other panels, which you'll see in a moment, to convey more information. Any other points you want to make about the exploration? I think we did like 27 directions. We had many work sessions, you might say. So obviously 27 directions, too many to test. I think Danny will attest to that. It was just way too many for a consumer to comprehend. And plus, it was pretty obvious that some directions just did not fully support the proposition. So working with Kathy and her colleagues, we narrowed the directions down. We had several refinement phases. And then we got, I think, down to like 10, right? 10 concepts. And then we started consumer testing. And do you want to talk a little bit about the testing process? Yeah.
Yeah, so we take these designs and we want them to be, uniquely different. We want them to have variety because we want to learn from them. Again, we take it back to the consumer. We might have our personal preference. I love this one and you love that one. But we need to make sure it's the consumer who's going to ultimately make the decision. Does it fit with what they need? So we tested this with 3,500 consumers in a quantitative test, looking to see, does it fit with the Boda portfolio, because we don't want to alienate our existing consumers, but does it fit with this better for you new wine offering that can attract new, younger consumers? And is it conveying all the information that they said they wanted to have available to them based on the research we did with the concept test? So we took that into testing with consumers, and They fed it back to us. And where we ended up, I think, was a very, very successful package design. What the consumer said, this was the winning concept, they got it. It belonged to BodaBox. And this was something uniquely different versus what exists today with BodaBox. It did convey that lighter, better for you, healthier wine offering. They said it was light and refreshing. They thought it looked like it would be delicious wine. And importantly, it got those most important attributes, those differentiators of lower calories, lower carbs, very front and center communicated on the package. What also we want to take an even deeper dive in is what was really most appreciated by those younger consumers, those new consumers that we want to get in not only to BodaBox, but just the whole wine category. They're very, very appreciative of the iconography. Don't give them too much copy. Just overwhelms them. They love to have their information delivered very visually appealing. So we used a lot of iconography on the side panels and on the front. And this younger consumer also wants transparency. They want to know what's inside. So in terms of the nutritional, the facts, we put that prominently both on the front, the actual alcohol percentage, the actual carb count, the actual calorie count on the front label, as well as delivering on that side panel that Deb was referring to in a very visual perspective, using those icons again. So it was a very successful product, package design that not only met all of the objectives, but it had standouts. So when we do various testing within the quantitative test, we ask consumers, can you find it on shelf? And yes, they can, so it can stand out. So this package works hard in store to convey the information we need it to convey.
A couple of the notes about the final design. You can see that we use the palm fronds as not only a device to convey the kind of spirit of the offering and the lightness and the kind of relaxing vibe, kind of suggests that you're tropical escape, just a little bit. We also executed those in that kind of brown tone because, again, the trick was how do we have some of those equities from BodaBox but yet still convey that this is lighter and it just kind of a different offering from the core. So, but the predominant background or canvas is like a light cream, which really helped communicate the overall offering as well as differentiating it from the core, which was another concern because we didn't want to cannibalize the core. We know that we wanted to protect those consumers and have this as an incremental offering on top of that established base. Also, you can see the interaction in the play with Breeze and some liberties taken, connecting Breeze to BodaBox, so it reads as a lockup. The core brand is still there, and it is still that core brand mark, that board mark, but then the descriptor, again, helps support the proposition. And then there's more supporting copy, but it's all presented in a kind of appropriate way for the overall look and feel. And of course, the river device, very important to the brand, is still front and center with a slightly tweaked palette, you might say. So just because you identify a winner, you don't stop, right? There are tweaks, there are refinements. How do we get those key attributes communicated in a pleasing way? Do we put it in a seal? Are they bundled together in a lockup? Don't forget the recycling sign. Don't forget like the value of how much is in this box, because there's actually 4 bottles in a box, and that still needs to be communicated. So even though you identify that, quote, winner, there's still a lot more to consider, and there are successive steps to tweak and refine and kind of massage the final design. Plus, you need to think about your extensions to your other varietals as well. And often getting the varietal color dialed in just right, a bit of a challenge, Kathy?
Yes.
Just a little bit, yeah, exactly. And this represents most of the line. I think you have like 1 or 2 other SKUs?
Just a new Chardonnay that we launched at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, we need to be mindful of time.
All right. So it was a successful launch. We think it was a great result of both product and great packaging. We're now the #1 light wine by volume in the category. Over 500,000 cases sold since launch. 20% of all light wine out there is BodaBox Breeze. So it was, again, a great way of finding that consumer need and developing a product concept that they were looking to deliver and a packaging that was very pleasing to them.
And I think that's it.
That's terrific. I'm taking Slido questions here, but we'll come back to some. I think it's really amazing what you said, Kathy, which was we're trying to get new people to come into wine. And once they become wine drinkers, maybe they'll turn into Francis Ford Coppola drinkers, right? What gives you encouragement as a sort of a gateway product to younger people?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to let wine consumers come in at how they want to come in. And if they want
Bingo.
to come in with a flavored wine, why would we want to push that back? We've got to democratize wine and make it as easy for them to come
Love it.
in to what fits their needs, their lifestyle, when it's appropriate. And typically they do, as they become a little more educated about wine, a little more educated on the palate, they do move through the portfolio of wines and they get into more unique varietals, vintages, appellations, and they just broaden their knowledge of wine and broaden their experience.
Fantastic. A very good answer. And I think Delicato has a full portfolio to embrace all those new wine drinkers. So thank you, Ed and Kathy, and Delicato and Affinity. Let's move on to Cline and Tim, and why don't we just go ahead and get into it?
All right, thanks so much. Great job. And my name is Tim. I am I'm the creative director at Gato Rivera. It's a partnership between me and my design partner, Antonio Rivera. And we will be talking about, with Hilary Cline, the Ancient Vines design project. Got it. There, that's the slide I was looking for. And so that's me and my design partner, Hilary, in various locations.
And they have a table out in front. If you haven't stopped by, please do.
Please do. And a little bit about my background. Been designing for wine packaging, wine and spirits packaging for the last 12 years. My design partner for the last 15 years. We both had various paths, different agencies, but we ultimately united. We met in design school, and then we reunited 10 years later at CF Napa Brand Design, and kept in contact and decided that we had a very unique complementary style, and we thought it would be good to have a boutique industry to emphasize communication, storytelling, and put our feet in the vineyard. And we are the directors, we also are the designers. So we really appreciate the hands-on opportunities. And so with that, this is Hilary Cline.
Hello. So I'm Hilary. I'm a member of the second generation family at Cline Cellars. My dad started the winery in the 80s, and I started working with my family. It's been pretty much my whole life, but in earnest in 2015, and I've had the opportunity to work in many different departments at the winery. So production, DTC, I've worked in the tasting room. I did wholesale sales for a couple years. So it's been great to kind of get a broad view of our own family business. And then I think some of the most valuable experiences I've had have been outside my family. So I worked Harvest for Sojourn Cellars for a year, and then worked for Pernod Ricard in the vineyards for a year. So my goal is to really get a broad view of the wine industry so we can transition our own family company into the second generation and keep it in the family, which is a really big issue, I think, for the wine industry right now. It's something that a lot of companies are confronting, the succession plan, and thankfully, my parents had 7 kids, so they knew someone was going to be interested. So me and my younger brother Henry and my sister Megan are all working with the family, and I think we're kind of confronted with a unique challenge because we've been around for 40 years. It feels like a really long time, and we are looking at transitioning the brand so we can carry it forward and still remain relevant. We're very exposed to Zinfandel, which unfortunately, as I'm sure Kathy knows well, is it's a struggling category right now. But when my dad started, he started out in Contra Costa, where a lot of Zinfandel vines are. He grew up in LA and spent summers in Contra Costa with his grandfather and started making wine out there. And the vines that are planted out there are these really old growth Zinfandel vines and then Rhone varietals. So that's kind of really how he started, was just what he was exposed to. And through the years, Zinfandel has had its heyday in the 90s, and then it's struggled, like I was saying recently. So we did, with this SKU, we came to Tim with a really big challenge, which was kind of to reinvigorate the Zinfandel item that we had. We also have two Zinfandels. We have an entry-level Zinfandel from Lodi, and then our Ancient Vines flagship Zinfandel from Contra Costa. And we really wanted to differentiate our flagship wine from our entry-level Zinfandel, kind of make it look a little bit more expensive, to put it bluntly. And then we also had a 40th anniversary coming up. So we really wanted to kind of celebrate that and use it as a transition point to reintroduce the brand and start drawing people to it on the shelf. I think it's really interesting because my dad, when he was starting, it was just a lot different landscape out there. His whole goal was to put a really great product in the bottle, and he did not care about marketing or packaging. I think there's so much competition these days that you have to care about marketing and packaging, and I really care about packaging. And I think a great experience I had was actually working in procurement and on our production team. So I was exposed to all the vendors, hearing from the vendors all the new things they're doing, and being exposed to a lot of packaging, printing, all that kind of thing. So it's definitely something you need to pay attention to in this day and age. And I think a big thing for us was deciding, can we do a revolutionary change, or should it just be kind of a refresh? And something that was really important for us to do was kind of go back and, at this transition point, do a whole new kind of brand essence. I think we had thought we understood Cline. I thought I understood Cline, exactly what we were, but it really helped to kind of sit down and say, okay, what kind of car would we drive if we were a person? What kind of clothes would we wear? And I think doing that process really helped us come to the conclusion we should look at doing a very revolutionary change, try and become a disruptor on the shelf. And so it was a pretty big challenge that we handed over to Tim over here. And we did really want to, with that brand essence, kind of lean into the pre-prohibition vines that we're sourcing from out in Contra Costa, and kind of that Rhone Ranger Western spirit. And I think he did a great job kind of capturing that. So I'll let him kind of speak to the challenge from his point of view.
Sure. Yeah, we're happy to walk you through the design process here and how we went about this. This graph speaks to what Hilary just mentioned about the overall Zinfandel category declining. Do you want to speak to this slide at all? It's pretty clear.
Understood. Yes.
But yeah, so the challenge that was given was we knew that through data that we had opportunity to really take a chance with a revolutionary package design aimed at a younger audience, and how we go about doing that was the challenge. And we knew we wanted to create a relaxed and unpretentious yet increased price with maximum shelf presence. Again, not an easy task. Leverage any kind of heritage, the growing site. Is there unique qualities there to justify the higher price point? And we focused on themes of family, authenticity, humility, down earth, sustainability, relaxed, hardworking. And then, there was an idea of maximizing the AVA, highlighting the region, and using unpretentious treatment, and the idea of typography was some of the goals that came out of that project.
Can I say one thing really cool? So to get down to these themes, I think one thing really awesome that Tim does, and I know Ed does as well, is they send out a questionnaire to every stakeholder in the design. So my mom got one, my dad got one, my siblings got them, everyone in the marketing department at Cline got a questionnaire, and you have to keep it secret, but you answer a series of questions. And those answers are what helps Tim kind of guide the next steps for the project. So really making sure if there's anything he needs to avoid or anything like that. And it was a really cool process to go through. So yeah, just wanted to mention.
Yeah, it's super beneficial to hear in writing some of the thoughts. If there are, we're not throwing anyone under the bus if there's polarizing conflict, but we know kind of if anything comes up. But in general, it also identifies that there's a universal theme, and everyone knows the true Cline, especially the Cline family. So we knew we had a lot to work with, but I think, yeah, so then the next phase, we really like to do a discovery phase on top of that survey. And if we have an opportunity to do a site visit, it's pretty much the most informed you can get as a designer. And it turns out there's nothing but unique qualities about this site. Contra Costa County is a kind of underdog, historic growing region, never fully rose to the top, but yet there's 100 years of history, 100-year plus history out there. It's obvious in the gnarly vines there in the soil. It's kind of trapped in time. The photos of the house is Fred Cline's original jacuzzi house, which is the family house that was moved to the site, and it is still fully intact from how he was raised. We had the opportunity to visit this with Fred Cline himself, which was, never forget that opportunity. And he, like Hilary said, that without knowing him, is probably pretty leery of marketing, and and he's a farmer, and it's our goal to reflect a package that he'd be proud of, but also now that kind of carved the challenge of how do you make that appealing to an audience or a younger audience without feeling inauthentic. And so the site visit was pretty fantastic, and we were inspired by a lot of the lo-fi nature, the colors, and then just the vines itself. There's a lot of stuff to work with, and so we just wanted to uncover that. But the design side is are there aesthetics that we can match to that? And I think what we just pulling the city of Oakley is in Contra Costa, the history there is pre-prohibition history there. We sort of were inspired by the 100 years is something that's like pretty rare in anywhere in wine and domestically, and we were able to pull bottles reminiscent from that time, and they do happen to have this strong typography theme, whether it's embossed or lo-fi kind of painted silkscreen bottles there. They also have a pretty, at the time marketing, it was pretty inspirational to see we need a billboard, what's in the bottle. That's the function of selling wine. So people can read it in the dim bar. It just was really fun to explore this world, and we sketched on that as designers do, and we ultimately found the design solution, which is here in front of us, and we were able to get this amazing photograph on the porch, and the color theme you can see. But I think the main quality that we all resonated with was that. There's a bunch of key words that you could just billboard right away that was the most powerful thing to put on the bottle. 100-year-old vines, ancient vines, family, owning Contra Costa County, which I think people bury, but if we can paint a picture of what that feeling is like for people that can't visit this property, that's all ultimately the goal. And I think we want people to be curious about, especially young, maybe non-wine drinkers, what is this site? Why does it look like this? What is 100 years about this? And if we can do that through design, it's a gateway to learning. And I think one concern that comes up is, I think there's speaking to this topic is, I think a lot of younger wine drinkers can be intimidated by AVAs and information about wine and profiles and everything that can be scary to talk about. And if we can give keywords in certain ways that match the personality of the site, then it's a gateway for them to bring it to a house to talk about to talk about that wine and feel confident. And if it looks great too, I mean, that's an added bonus. But I think we really just tried to focus in on the story and how that looks in visual form.
Yeah, really quickly. Okay, I will say it was really scary to kind of make this transition. Sorry, Tim, because it's just a huge difference, and I think something that we've seen before when we've changed packages, that when you change, people can't find you on the shelf. And so I think, Tim, you did a really good job making Cline really big. And I think it's really important for us. We would love to do focus groups. Our budget is very limited, which I'm sure as a family-owned winery, it's a very common thing for packaging. But what we try and do instead of being able to do really in-depth consumer testing is take it to our tasting room and ask people that are coming in, take it to the local Safeway, honestly talk to the wine steward there. She's like our confidant because she tells us what everybody is kind of saying about our packaging, take pictures of it on the shelf, see what other people are doing. And it was really awesome to take this design in there and just see how much it stood out against the rest of the category. It's, I think, the only text-driven Zinfandel label, and it really does stand out. And I think it's a really cool use of silkscreen. Also, we work with Monvera, who's out there, and people who aren't into wine kind of gravitate towards a cool bottle. So anything kind of unique you can do that brings people to it and hopefully attracts people over to the shrinking Zinfandel category is good.
That's great. We are rapidly running out of time, but I wanted to focus in on something you said, and that is that you were looking for a new expression that was more premiumization, right? Can you just talk a little bit about the transition from a paper label to screen printing in regards to premiumization?
Yeah, I'll start. Yeah, I'll try to be quick, brief. I think there's elegant properties that it just fit there with the previous design, but they ultimately didn't stand out in a way that was in a price point differentiator. And I think the staying true to the story can be a luxury. I know that's like kind of an oxymoron, but I think bringing it back to the next gen packaging, like there's probably nothing worse than feeling forced, and I think there's something about being true to the brand that feels premium. I think silkscreen just happens to be perceived that way a lot. It really can upgrade the packaging. It's also reminiscent of this era, so I think it just feels
Sure.
authentic
Sure.
in that way.
We're going to be true to finishing at 1:45, which is in 3 minutes. But we still have the room afterwards, and the next session doesn't start till 2 o'clock. So I invite all of you to stick around and ask more questions of our panelists. But we have a whole lot of very good questions. And since we're on the subject of Cline, a question had come in. How much of a influence does the family have on final packaging?
Oh, we can ask Shireen over here. She does all our marketing at Cline, but I think we do have the final say. I mean, we listen to everybody's opinion and try and do as much of that research
Sure.
that we can. But
Okay.
yeah, my dad has the final say.
Ultimately, and then for Delicato, I mean, Delicato is a family business. How influential are the Delicato family members in your final packaging?
I think it's been an evolution over the years. It used to be very much family. Gnarly Head was Zinfandel brand, and they could count how many old designs were on there. As we've evolved, we're very consumer-led now, so they are letting the consumer results to, really guide our thinking in terms of what we bring to market.
Fantastic. So small family, big family. I think there's probably a path from one to the other.
Absolutely.
Going on. Another question came up about market research, and that was, how do you do consumer market research? And maybe that is a complicated question that our panel can stick around just a little while afterwards.
Sure.
But I think it's a terrific question, especially for you, for you too, who did so much consumer research to get to Boda Breeze. Another question came in. When did you launch Boda Breeze?
First quarter 2021. So we started
So
shipping in January.
Was that during COVID?
Yes.
How did that affect your whole plan of product development?
It definitely threw in a few curves. It was a lot of it was tastings were interesting, trying to get the right blend and while doing it separately. But
With a mask on?
yes, I know, on up. But yeah, it threw a little bit of a curve. But really, that was during the era when the COVID spike that everybody was coming into wine and shaped in different ways, and box wines actually really accelerated during that time. So it was a really good time, honestly, for the Boda franchise, just as consumers coming in, and this was a natural evolution in terms of what their expectations were.
That's great. So we're going to call it. That is our presentation for today. Again, if you'd like to stick around and ask our experts some questions, I think everyone can stick around for just a little bit, right? Okay. And so let's give them a round of applause.